Mother gave both dragon eggs to my younger sister. I warned her against it, for ancient texts foretold great calamity when black and white dragon eggs are kept together. She called me superstitious and locked me outside in the blizzard for 10 full days, until my sister's skin began growing scales, her pupils turned vertical, and her body slowly contorted into monstrous shapes. They knelt before me, begging me to save her. I just smiled and said, "Isn't this exactly what you wanted?" When I opened my eyes, I found myself standing in the familiar living room. In that dazed moment, I could still feel the searing pain of the dagger plunging into my abdomen, and the chilling coldness of collapsing into a pool of blood. Her voice still echoed in my ears. "Both dragon eggs go to your sister. She's the future of this family." I stared at Mother as if seeing her for the first time. The face I once found kind and gentle now filled me with nothing but revulsion. Her eyes burned with obsession, lips twisted into a sickening smile. "See, Verena, how much your mother loves you. Both eggs are yours." Verena. Sadly, behind all this beauty lurks immense danger. My sister carefully placed the 2 dragon eggs on her nightstand. "Big sis," she asked, "what kind of dragons do you think will hatch from these?" I pretended to ponder for a moment. "They'll probably be quite special. After all, one's black and one's white, so maybe they'll be twin dragons." "Twin dragons?" My sister's eyes lit up. "That's awesome. Then I can ride a dragon to school." Dad put down his chopsticks and smiled mysteriously. "Well, I have my ways, of course, but you can't tell anyone about this. Got it, MHM. My sister nodded vigorously. "I promise I won't tell." I lowered my head and continued eating, a suspicion already forming in my mind. Not long after I died in my previous life, Dad was arrested for a case involving the illegal sale of national treasures. Verena, listening to their conversation, I calmly picked up a piece of food with my chopsticks. In my previous life, at this very moment, I was still painstakingly trying to persuade them, only to end up being thrown out of the house. I starved for 10 days and 10 nights in the heavy snow. If it weren't for a kind soul, I would have died long ago. "Sister," my younger sister suddenly called out to me, "could you pick up some cleaning supplies for me later?" "Verena, Joyce, what's with the delay?" Mom slammed the table. "I told you to go, so go. What are you being so coy about?" I lowered my head and meekly replied, "Okay, I'll go now." My sister smirked. "Such a good girl, big sis. But then again, you're only fit for errands like this." I clenched my chopsticks, then quickly loosened my grip. It's too early to argue with her about this now. When the dragon egg starts to mutate, she'll get what's coming to her. Just as I grabbed my wallet to head out, Dad called out, "Wait." I turned back. "What else is there?" He pulled a few banknotes from his wallet. "While you're out, swing by the supermarket and grab some snacks for your sister. She's been working really hard looking after the dragon egg." I took the money, smiling. "Okay, Dad." Seeing my obedient demeanor, he nodded with satisfaction. "You've matured a lot. Not like before, always bickering with your sister." I looked down and tied my shoelaces, saying nothing. In my past life, I really did argue with my sister all the time. I felt our parents were too biased, always doting on her and being overly critical of me, but now I understand. There's no point in arguing with people like that. They've long considered me an outsider. Mabel, Joyce, Mabel. When I got home, my sister was sitting in the living room watching TV. Seeing the shopping bags in my hand, her eyes immediately lit up. "What snacks did you get?" I handed her the bags. "All your favorites." She rummaged through them, and suddenly her expression changed. "How come there's no chocolate?" I looked at the snacks scattered all over the floor and sighed. "I'll go buy some more right now." "No need," Mom said sharply. "Verena, you wait here. Mom will go buy them for you." She then glared at me. You just deliberately make your sister worry. You can't even handle such a small thing. No wonder you can't have the dragon egg." I lowered my head and said nothing. This scene, how similar it was to my previous life. 2. I closed my eyes, recalling the scene from this very moment in my past life. Back then, I was still upset about not being able to get the dragon egg. Looking back now, it's truly laughable. That was never a good thing. It was a ticking time bomb destined to bring disaster. Verena. I sat down at the dining table, watching her busy back. The sunlight hit the surface of the dragon eggs, refracting a strange, ethereal glow. On the black one, golden patterns shimmered faintly. The white one was almost translucent. "How beautiful," Mom exclaimed. "Verena is truly blessed, but for now, I won't say a word. Let them discover the truth themselves." By noon, my sister was still fiddling with those 2 dragon eggs. "Look," she pointed at the patterns on the black dragon egg. "Aren't they more distinct now?" I leaned in for a closer look, and a thought struck me. Sure enough, the golden patterns were much more pronounced than yesterday, and within the white one, I could vaguely discern something flowing inside. This change is happening faster than in my previous life. It seems that bottle of cleaner really did the trick. No way. My sister was on the verge of tears. I use the best cleaner. And I scrub it meticulously every single day. I stood by the door, watching them scramble. I thought to myself, this is just the beginning. They'll only truly understand terror when the dragon egg actually starts to mutate. Joyce, I stopped in my tracks and listened carefully. In my past life, I was too naive to ever consider this possibility. Only now do I realize Dad was probably talking about those stolen artifacts on the phone. Dad, I suddenly spoke up. I whispered, should we separate them? No. She objected immediately. They must stay together. I looked it up online. Dragon eggs need mutual incubation. I shrugged. Fine, keep them together then. They're your dragon eggs after all. My little sister gave me a suspicious look. Big sis, do you know something I don't? I chuckled. What could I possibly know? You're the one who understands dragon eggs. She thought for a moment, seemingly convinced. You're right. How could an ordinary person like you know more than me? I offered no comment, turning to leave the room. Just as I reached the staircase, I heard my sister scream, Mom, Mom, come quick. My little sister shrieked, calling for Mom. Mom rushed over. What's going on here? Seeing the dragon egg, she froze too. What is this? I stood by the door, watching them scramble. Looking at her frail state, I was reminded of a past life. She was just like this back then, too. At first, she just felt a bit unwell, and then, sister, my younger sister suddenly called out to me, could you go downstairs and get me some medicine? I paused for a moment. What kind of medicine? Any fever reducer will do, she said weakly. I think I'm running a fever. Mom touched her forehead. You're really warm, Joyce. Go get some medicine now. I nodded. Okay. Before leaving the house, I took one last look at the 2 dragon eggs. Mom, wiping her face with a damp cloth, asked, Joyce, did you get the medicine? I handed her the medicine. Got it. Even after taking the medicine, my sister still felt unwell. She looked at the dragon eggs on the table. Is it because of them? Her mother comforted her. How could that be? Dragon eggs are a good thing. How could they make you sick? A good thing. In her past life, it was these 2 dragon eggs that turned her sister into that monstrous, unrecognizable state. By nightfall, the situation had worsened. Her sister developed a high fever that wouldn't break. And she said her whole body ached, like her bones were about to split open. Doctor, my mom finally panicked. We need to call a doctor. After the doctor arrived, they couldn't really explain what was going on. They just said it was a common cold and fever, prescribed some medicine, and left. My sister stared at her arm and let out a desperate cry. My skin, what's happening to my skin? I watched it all unfold in silence. At this point in my past life, the transformation had only just begun. By the end, she became completely unrecognizable. Not even her own mother could identify her. It must be dragon eggs. My sister suddenly shrieked. They must be the ones causing all this trouble. She struggled to get out of bed, but Mom stopped her. In your condition, you shouldn't be moving around. No, she screamed, thrashing wildly. I have to separate them. They're definitely trying to harm me. By the time she stumbled to the table, the 2 dragon eggs had completely fused together. The doctor said they couldn't find a cause. Mom slumped onto the sofa. They said they'd never seen symptoms like this before. Right, what doctor in this world would have seen something like this? This is a curse from an ancient dragon's egg. How could modern medicine possibly explain it? My sister huddled in bed, trembling uncontrollably. So cold. Why is it so cold? Verena, my sister curled up on the bed, her exposed skin now completely blackened and covered in scaly protrusions. The dragon eggs on the table were even more bizarre. The 2 eggs had fused into one, emitting an unsettling glow. Dad, my sister burst into tears upon seeing him. You're finally back. Please help me. Staggering to the bedside, Dad gasped. What on earth is happening here? Frank, sadly, no one believed it at the time. Something terrifying must have been said on the other end. Dad's face turned deathly pale. No, that's impossible. He hung up mechanically, completely stunned. What on earth happened? Mom shook him desperately. Say something. Dad slumped to the ground. It's over. It's all over, Frank said. He said there's indeed a legend about dragon eggs in that ancient tomb. He mumbled. 2 dragon eggs, one black and one white, representing yin and yang. If kept separate, they are priceless treasures. But if they're put together, what happens if they're put together? Mom asked urgently. It will trigger disaster. Dad's voice grew fainter, and the first to suffer will be the person who's had the most contact with the dragon eggs, Verena. 4. What did they do to me at this time in my past life? They locked me in a room, starved me, and called me an ill omen that brought disaster. Now, karma has finally come back to bite them. To the hospital. Get her to the hospital now. Dad snapped out of it and started barking orders. Pack the essentials. Iris, my heart sank. That must be my sister, the state she's in now. Probably shouldn't be seen by anyone. I drew the curtains and lay down on the bed. In the darkness, a cold smirk played at the corner of my mouth. This is just the beginning, little sister. Haven't you always thought you were special? Well now, you're about to become truly special. So special that even your own parents will fear you. The hospital test results are in. I've never seen anything like this, the attending physician said with a puzzled expression. Her genes appear to be undergoing some unknown mutation, but the cause remains completely unclear. I stood outside the hospital room, watching the scene through the glass. My younger sister was isolated, tubes covering her entire body. Her appearance had completely transformed. Black scales now covered her skin, her facial features twisted into something monstrous. Mom sobbed. Isn't there any treatment? Nothing at all? The doctor shook his head helplessly. We'll keep monitoring and researching, but honestly, this condition is extraordinarily rare. Watching my mother break down, I felt nothing inside. Did you ever consider my suffering when you locked me out in that blizzard and left me starving for 10 days and nights in my past life? The test results are in, the chief physician said, approaching with a stack of papers. Take a look. Mom and Dad leaned in, but froze after a quick glance. What does this mean? Frankly, we can't make sense of it either. The doctor pointed at the data. Her genes are mutating rapidly in an extremely unusual pattern. These readings suggest her DNA is transforming towards some reptilian species. Reptilian, my mom's voice trembled. What does that mean? The doctor hesitated. It means her body is undergoing some form of atavism. But the speed and extent of this regression are unlike anything we've ever seen. I stood by, listening to their conversation. At this very moment in my previous life, they were still forcing me to admit fault, claiming my jealousy had brought divine punishment. Let them face this truth on their own now. It must be those 2 dragon eggs, Mom suddenly exclaimed. They must be the cause of all this. Dad's expression darkened further. Then what do we do now? We can't just keep them in the house forever, but we can't even touch them. How are we supposed to deal with this? Mom cried in frustration, stamping her foot. I chuckled inwardly watching their flustered helplessness. Scared now. Too late. Suddenly, my sister's piercing scream came from the ward. HHH. We rushed in to find her thrashing about wildly. Tubes were ripped haphazardly from her body as scales visibly sprouted across her exposed skin. It hurts, it hurts. Her screams had warped into something inhuman, a bestial shriek. Help me, somebody help me. Nurses rushed in to restrain her and administer sedatives, but it was futile. Her strength had surged, allowing her to break free from multiple people's grasp. Call security, the doctor shouted. I stood at the doorway, watching the chaotic scene unfold. In my past life, they called me a jinx and locked me outside. Now, she's the real monster. Finally, after administering a double dose of sedatives, my younger sister gradually calmed down, but her appearance became even more horrifying. Her original facial features had almost completely vanished, replaced by a visage somewhere between human and reptilian. Oh my God, a nurse covered her mouth. Is this even human anymore? Mom immediately rushed over. What did you just say? That's my daughter. The nurse staggered backward in fright. Sorry. I leaned against the wall, watching it all unfold. This is nothing yet. When she becomes truly terrifying, you'll abandon even the last shred of mother-daughter bond. Just then, my phone vibrated. A message from Iris. We've gathered enough evidence. Should we release it now? I replied. Not yet. Let them taste despair first. What you did to me in our past life, I'll return tenfold in this one. When you're drowning in utter despair, I'll make sure every truth comes to light. By then, not only will the world know about my sister turning into a monster, but also all the illegal things Dad's been involved in. Sis, came my sister's faint voice from the hospital bed. I walked over. What's wrong? She stared at me with those completely slit-pupiled eyes. Save me. Please, save me. I chuckled. How could I save you? I don't know the first thing about this. No, you must know a way. Her voice trembled with tears. You knew this would happen from the start. You must know how to fix it. I leaned down and whispered in her ear. Even if I did know, why should I tell you? Her pupils contracted sharply. You really, but it's too late now. I straightened up. Just like how you ignored me before. Nothing can change this now. She tried to speak, then suddenly clutched her throat and began coughing violently. Cough, cough. She doubled over, hacking uncontrollably until finally expelling a thick black fluid. The liquid splattered onto the white sheets with a sizzling sound, burning a hole straight through the fabric. What the hell is this? The doctor recoiled in horror. The nurse rushed to fetch sampling containers, but by the time she returned, the black liquid had completely soaked into the mattress, leaving only a charred stain. We need full diagnostics immediately, the doctor ordered. Get CT and MRI scans scheduled right now. Run every test available. I stood frozen, watching the chaos unfold. What's the point of these tests? It's an ancient curse, a mystery modern medicine can never unravel. After they wheeled my sister out for tests, only a few of us remained in the ward. This is all your fault. Mom suddenly turned on Dad. You just had to go steal that dragon egg. Now look what's happened to Verena. Dad was speechless. My phone vibrated again, a message from Iris. I've compiled all the evidence against your father. Never imagined he'd committed this many crimes, I replied. Any concrete details? Plenty, Iris said. Not just tomb raiding. There's artifact smuggling, bribery, even a homicide case. My eyes lit up. A murder case? That's unexpected. Seems Dad's been up to more mischief than I imagined. Send me the details, I replied. Soon after, a detailed document came through. I read it with a cold sneer. Oh, Father, you never fail to surprise me. Just then, the test results came in. The doctor's face darkened. The situation is very serious. What's wrong? Mom asked urgently. The doctor pointed at the scan. Look here, her internal organs are undergoing changes. The lungs, heart, liver, they're all transforming into reptilian-like structures, and this process is still progressing. Then, what should we do? Mom's voice trembled. To be honest, we don't know either. The doctor said helplessly, this situation is unprecedented. If things continue like this, he left the sentence unfinished, but everyone understood what he meant. If this transformation continues, my little sister will truly become a monster. No, Mother screamed. We must find a way. We have to save Verena. I stood aside, watching her hysterical outburst. You didn't show me this much concern when you shut me out in our past life. Just then, Dad's phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the number. His expression changed, and he hurried out to the hallway to take the call. I quietly followed and eavesdropped from around the corner. Dad spoke in a hushed voice. /hello, Frank, / find anything, / His face darkened at whatever was said on the other end. What do you mean? There's something else in that ancient tomb. I pricked up my ears and listened intently. These conversations might give me more leverage, a way to lift the curse. Dad's voice suddenly rose before quickly dropping to a whisper. What method? Requiring someone else's blood. Must it be virgin blood? A thought struck me. In my past life, they used this very excuse to kill me, claiming a sinner's blood could break the curse. Okay, I got it. Dad hastily hung up the phone and turned to leave. I quickly stepped aside, watching his hurried figure disappear. I pulled out my phone and texted Iris, help me find out where that ancient tomb they mentioned is located. The reply came almost instantly, got it. But be careful, they seem to be plotting something. I smirked coldly. I know, but don't worry, this is exactly what I've been waiting for. Just as you murdered me in my past life, I'll expose every truth to the world in this one, then let the whole world see what kind of monsters you truly are. Back in the hospital room, my sister's condition had deteriorated further. She curled up on the hospital bed, her body convulsing uncontrollably. Her once fair skin had turned completely black, now covered in dense scales. Even more horrifying, her bones seemed to be shifting, twisting her entire form into grotesque shapes. It hurts so much, she slurred through her distorted speech. Forming words had become nearly impossible. Her tongue had forked into something resembling a serpent's. Mother stayed by the bedside, wiping her sweat through tears. Verena, hold on a little longer, I'll find a way to save you. I promise. I leaned against the wall, watching this tender scene unfold. When you shut me out in our past life, why didn't you ever think to care for me like this? Father returned with an unreadable expression. Joyce, he called out, come with me for a moment. I followed him to the corridor corner, already anticipating what he was about to say. Sure enough, he blurted out, Joyce, do you remember what you said before about those 2 dragon eggs? I feigned confusion. What did I say? Well, he hesitated. You mentioned something about them causing catastrophe if kept together. I chuckled. Dad, are you misremembering? When did I ever say that? Impossible. He flared up. You definitely said it. And, you seem to know something. Watching his frantic expression, I sneered inwardly. So what if I do? You never bothered asking my opinion when you gave that dragon egg to Verena. He froze momentarily before stammering. That's because Verena was more suited. Exactly. I cut him off. Little sister was always the better fit, so this outcome, her becoming like this, is actually the most appropriate, don't you think? His eyes widened. You do know something. Tell me now, how do we break the curse? Leaning against the wall with a smirk, I said, Dad, are you begging me? He gritted his teeth. Yes, I'm begging you. Name your price, just tell me how to lift the curse, and I'll give you anything, I burst out laughing. But Dad, what could you possibly give me? Those shady dealings of yours won't stay hidden for long. His face turned pale. What do you mean? I fell silent and walked away. His ragged breathing followed me, but I didn't look back. Since you seek the curse's undoing, walk the path of your past life. When desperation drives you to reckless acts, that's when your doom is sealed. Returning to the ward, I found my sister mid-seizure. Her body convulsed violently as black fluid gushed from her mouth. The liquid splashed onto the ground with a sizzling, corrosive hiss. Hurry, get the doctor, Mom screamed in panic. Doctors and nurses rushed in, frantically administering injections and IVs, but to no avail. Her mutation had progressed beyond the point of no return. No. The attending physician wiped his sweat. She won't last much longer at this rate. Mom collapsed onto the floor. How could this happen? Why is this happening? I pulled out my phone and texted Iris, get this recorded for me. The reply came quickly, don't worry, I've got someone filming, we'll release it when you're ready. A cold smirk crept across my lips as I stared at the phone screen. Just wait, soon the whole world will know exactly what you've done. The hospital finally settled into quietness as night fell. My younger sister drifted into sleep under sedation. Though her body still twitched restlessly, I stood by the window, gazing at the moonlight outside. At this very moment in my past life, they had already begun plotting to kill me. This time around, let's see how you'll handle the fallout. My phone vibrated with a message from Iris. New intel, that ancient tomb business. Your father wasn't acting alone. There's a bigger player behind this. My eyes lit up. Did you find out who it was? Got some leads, she said. Want me to send them now? I pondered for a moment. Hold off, let's wait until they're more rattled. Putting down my phone, I turned to look at my sister lying in the hospital bed. Her current appearance was truly horrifying, barely recognizable as human anymore. Black scales covered her entire body, her limbs twisted into grotesque shapes, even her breathing reduced to serpent-like hisses. Mother kept vigil by the bedside, quietly sobbing the whole time. I knew what she was thinking, her beloved daughter. The prodigy she took such pride in had become this monstrous abomination. Fathers disappeared somewhere, probably off chasing that so-called curse-breaking method again. That was their excuse for killing me in my past life too, claiming a sinner's blood could lift curses. Just then, my sister woke abruptly, her slit-pupiled eyes locked onto me as she rasped, "Sis, I feel awful." I approached her bedside. "What's wrong? Am I dying?" she asked. I chuckled. "Nonsense. Weren't you the invincible one, the future dragon rider?" Dark red fluid seeped from her eyes. She couldn't even shed normal tears anymore. "I'm sorry, sis, I shouldn't have." I cut her off. "Shouldn't what?" "Stolen my dragon egg, looked down on me, made everything a competition." She froze. You really?" "Yes, I knew this would happen," I whispered in her ear as I leaned down. "But I won't save you. Just like you all refused to lift a finger when I needed help. No, please." She began to struggle. "Save me, I'm begging you, save me." I straightened up. "Too late. As you people say, what goes around comes around." Mom had woken up at some point and was staring at me wide-eyed. "Joyce, what are you saying?" I smiled without a word. I turned to meet her shocked gaze. "Nothing, I was just talking to my sister." "No, you just..." Her voice trembled. "Did you know this would happen all along?" I smiled. "Mom, what are you talking about? How could I possibly know?" "You knew all along," she shrieked abruptly. "You warned us about the catastrophe when two dragon eggs are placed together. Was this deliberate? Are you jealous of your sister?" I watched her hysterics coldly. "Jealous? Did you ever consider your cruelty when you locked me out in the blizzard for 10 days and nights without food? She froze momentarily. "What nonsense is this? When did such a thing ever happen?" Then it struck me. These were memories from a past life, in this lifetime. I never experienced any of that, but it doesn't matter anymore. Seeing the doubt flickering in her eyes, I suddenly laughed. "True, it never happened, but soon, you'll face something far worse." Just then, Dad pushed the door open. His face was grim, and he shot Mom a meaningful look the moment he stepped in. "Joyce, could you step out for a moment?" Mom said. "Your father and I need to talk." I nodded and left the hospital room, but I didn't go far, just lingered outside the door to eavesdrop. Dad's voice came through. "Frank said there's a way to save Verena." "What way?" Mom asked urgently. "It requires a virgin's blood." Dad lowered his voice. "And it must be from a blood-related virgin." I sneered outside. "Just like in my past life, they want to use my blood to save my sister." "You mean?" Mom gasped. "Joyce, yes," Dad said. "Only her blood can break this curse." The hospital room fell silent for a long moment before Mom's trembling voice came. "But that would kill her." "That's still better than letting Verena turn into a monster." Dad suddenly raised his voice. "Look at her now. If this continues, she won't even be human anymore. I stood outside the door, listening to their conversation with a cold laugh. This was exactly how they'd used that excuse to kill me in my past life. This time around, I'll see exactly what they plan to do, but how would we even do it? Mom's voice still trembled. If this kind of thing were discovered, no way, Dad said. I've already got it all figured out. We can just grab her on her way home, and then take her out to the suburbs. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Every word would be evidence for my revenge, but she's so on guard right now. Mom was still hesitant. It's fine, Dad said. I've already got someone lined up. Tomorrow night, when she comes home from the hospital, I unlocked my phone and texted Iris, ready. The reply came instantly, all set, just waiting for your signal. I turned off my phone and pushed open the hospital room door. Mom, Dad, what are you two talking about? They were visibly startled. Dad stammered, and nothing, it's nothing, I smiled. Are you discussing how to save my sister? They exchanged glances. Seeing panic reflected in each other's eyes, Mom forced a smile. Yes. We're trying to figure something out. I approached the hospital bed, staring at my sister whose form was barely human anymore. Actually, I do know one possible solution. What? They turned their heads in unison. I deliberately paused for effect. I've heard, a virgin's blood can break the curse. Specifically, it must come from a blood-related virgin. Their faces drained of all color instantly. Dad stammered, how did you know? I chuckled. Didn't I tell you? I knew these dragon eggs would bring calamity. That's why I've done my research. Mom's voice trembled. Then you, what? I turned with a wry smile. Are you thinking of using my blood to save her? My words hit home, leaving them speechless. I continued. Pity you won't get the chance now. What do you mean? Dad asked warily. I waved my phone before them. I've recorded your entire conversation, and I paused for effect. I've got solid evidence of your dirty little secrets. Dad's face turned deathly pale in an instant. What exactly do you know? I sneered. I know plenty, like those tomb raiding incidents, the artifact smuggling, and that person who died in the ancient tomb. He sprang to his feet. How could you possibly know about these things? I took a step back. Dad, what are you trying to do? Planning to lay hands on me right here in the hospital? He froze, scrambling back into his seat. I didn't. Save your breath, I said. I know all about your plan. Thought you'd ambush me on my way home. Too bad. The thugs you hired are already on the police radar. Mom collapsed into the chair. It's over. All over. Just then, a blood-curdling scream came from my sister's hospital bed. We turned to see her body convulsing violently, something writhing beneath her skin. She let out an inhuman shriek. It hurts. It hurts. Several nurses rushed in at the sound, frantically administering sedatives. But this time even the sedatives failed. Her body contorted wildly, as if something was trying to burst out from within. Get a doctor, quick, get a doctor, the nurse screamed. The doctors came running, but they were powerless to help. My sister's mutation had reached its final stage. No medication could stop it now. With a sickening crack, we heard bone snapping. Her spine arched violently upward, the skin stretching taut to the point of splitting. Oh my God, a nurse covered her mouth. What on earth happened here? I stood aside, watching everything unfold with cold detachment. When you killed me in my past life, did you ever imagine this would be your fate? Help me, help. My sister could no longer form coherent words, only muffled whimpers. Her tongue was completely forked, flickering in and out like a serpent's. Mother threw herself at the bedside. Verena, stay with me, Verena. I pulled out my phone and texted Iris, initiate the operation, soon. Commotion erupted in the hospital corridor, then came the sound of hurried footsteps. Police, freeze. Several officers stormed into the hospital room, pinning Dad to the floor. You're under arrest for grave robbery, artifact smuggling, and conspiracy to commit murder. Dad struggled against them. You've got the wrong man. I didn't do anything. The lead officer pulled out a stack of documents. This is all the evidence. We've uncovered everything, including your murders in the ancient tomb. Mom collapsed onto the floor. No, this can't be. I leaned against the wall, watching it all unfold. Iris did well. Her timing was perfect. Just then, someone rushed in. Report, we've found a large cache of cultural relics in his home, and this, another officer held up a tablet. Someone just leaked online that they were planning to kill their own daughter, to use her blood to save their other daughter. Mom and Dad turned to me simultaneously, their eyes filled with disbelief. It's you. It was all you, I smiled. Yes, it was me. This is your karma. My younger sister let out her final agonized scream on the hospital bed. When we turned back, her body had completely transformed into something resembling a giant reptile. Black scales covered her entire form, with eerie light glinting from her vertical pupils. Staring at me, she rasped her last words, "Elder sister, you did this to me." Then her body suddenly stiffened and ceased all movement. The doctor rushed to examine her. She's gone. Mother let out a piercing wail before collapsing to the ground. Father was pinned by the police. Completely dumbstruck, I stood there, watching it all unfold. Whatever you did to kill me in my past life, I'll make you pay double in this one. As I walked out of the hospital, Iris was waiting by the entrance. All set, I nodded. Yeah, it's over. What about those 2 dragon eggs? She asked. They've been handed over to the authorities, I said. That sort of thing is better left to professionals. Iris looked at me. You knew this would happen, didn't you? I smiled. Something like that. Then why didn't you stop it sooner? She asked. If you had spoken up earlier, maybe none of this would have happened. I shook my head. No, it had to be this way. Only by letting them taste despair can I repay the blood debt from my past life. Past life? She looked at me, puzzled. I didn't explain, just looked up at the sky. Moonlight cascaded like water over the deserted streets. In this lifetime, I've finally achieved my vengeance. Every debt from my past life has been repaid in full this time. As for those 2 dragon eggs, let them slumber forever in the nation's secret vault. Not all treasures in this world are meant for human hands. Some forms of greed bring utter ruin. Just like them, their greed killed me, and now they reap what they sowed. That's karma for you. I sneered inwardly. Story 2. I died on the snowy night of Chinese New Year's Eve. This was the second time I experienced this moment. The cold wind scraped my cheeks like knives as I knelt before the door of room 1602, my fingers already purple from frostbite, yet still mechanically knocking. Leona, please, fever medicine, my mother. My voice was so hoarse it no longer sounded human. From behind the door came the sound of the Spring Festival Gala playing on TV, the audience's laughter so piercing it made me want to cry. Thud, an empty medicine box was thrown out, hitting me in the face. The edge of the plastic packaging left a bloody scratch on my frozen cheek. I told you there's none left. What awful luck during the new year. Leona's voice came through the door. Knock again and I'll call the police. Trembling, I picked up the empty medicine box. It was a box of ibuprofen sustained-release capsules, manufactured just 3 days prior, right when medicines were scarcest after the pandemic lockdown was lifted. The box still carried the warmth from her home's heating. I clutched the empty medicine box desperately, stumbling my way home. The thermometer in the hallway showed -52 degrees Celsius, my exhaled breath frosting into ice crystals on my eyelashes. A faint candlelight seeped through the door crack of room 1601. Pushing the door open, I saw Mom curled up on the sofa, covered with every piece of clothing we could find. Her face was unnaturally red, her breathing as labored as a broken bellows. Mom, I'm sorry. I placed the empty medicine box in her burning palm. I'm useless. Mother's fingers twitched, but she didn't even have the strength to hold the medicine box. Her lips moved, and I leaned down to listen. Amara, are you cold? Come. Let Mom hold you. These were her last words. I held her gradually cooling body tightly, feeling my own body temperature slowly fading away. The snow outside the window grew heavier, with sporadic firecracker sounds echoing in the distance. How strange. People actually feel warm right before freezing to death. In my dazed state, I began removing my coat. At that moment, I heard Leona's laughter from next door. Along with the clinking of glasses. Happy New Year. I stared fixedly at the empty pill box, using every last ounce of strength to crush it out of shape before losing consciousness. If there could be a next life. Ding-ling-ling, the piercing alarm clock jolted me awake. I sat up abruptly, covered in cold sweat. The familiar bedroom, the warm quilt, the phone on the nightstand displayed, January 15th, 7:30 a.m. With trembling hands, I opened my phone. The calendar showed today was the 24th day of the 12th lunar month, 6 days left until New Year's Eve. Amara, are you awake? I made congee. Mom's voice came from outside the door. Tears welled up in my eyes instantly. Barefoot, I rushed out and saw Mom standing in the kitchen wearing an apron, ladling pork and preserved egg congee into bowls. Her cheeks were rosy, her fingers nimble, nothing like, "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" Mom looked at me in astonishment. Seeing the tears streaming down my face, I clung to her desperately, inhaling the faint scent of cooking oil and the fresh fragrance of laundry detergent. Crying like a child, this child, go wash up quickly, the porridge is getting cold. I sat at the dining table, mechanically spooning porridge into my mouth. The steaming porridge slid down my throat, feeling terrifyingly real, not a dream. I pinched my thigh 3 times, wincing in pain each time. I've truly been reborn. 1 week before the calamity strikes, suddenly, a commotion came from outside the window. I walked to the balcony and saw a van parked downstairs, with workers unloading boxes. 16th floor, be careful, these are all valuable medicines, a familiar voice commanded. My blood ran cold instantly. It was Leona. I hid behind the curtains, watching her direct workers to carry over a dozen cardboard boxes labeled XX Pharmaceuticals into the elevator. Around her neck hung a jade pendant I'd never seen before, shimmering with an eerie glow in the sunlight. In my past life at this time, I'd never paid her any attention, though we were neighbors. Ours was merely a nodding acquaintance. Until the third day of the extreme cold, when the entire city lost power and heating. My mother caught the fever while caring for an infected colleague. I clutched the curtains with a death grip. Those cardboard boxes absolutely contained medicine. I remember the logo on that empty medicine box. It was from XX Pharmaceuticals. A terrifying thought crossed my mind. She knew the disaster was coming. For the next few hours, I stood guard at the peephole like a creep, checking every 10 minutes. At 3 p.m., the property management came to collect trash, and I seized the chance to pretend taking out garbage. Passing by her doorstep, the door of Unit 1602 was tightly shut, but 2 boxes of empty mineral water bottles were placed outside. I crouched to tie my shoelaces and casually touched one of the bottles, ice cold. Inside were partially melted ice cubes. It's January 15th. The outdoor temperature is 8 degrees Celsius. Where did she get so much ice from? When I got home, I turned on my computer and frantically searched for recent weather warnings. All official forecasts showed just a regular cold wave for the coming week, with temperatures no lower than -5 degrees Celsius. But I knew better. I remember that -52 degrees Celsius thermometer. After nightfall, I peered through the peephole again. At 1 a.m., there was finally movement in the hallway. Leona emerged from the elevator wearing a thick down jacket, followed by 2 men in black pushing a flatbed cart piled high with bulging woven bags. "Gently, don't wake the neighbors," she whispered in a low voice. I held my breath. They carried things back and forth 3 times, and on the last trip, a bag tore open, spilling several vacuum-sealed packages of rice. Strangely enough, after these things were moved in, the area in front of room 1602 returned to its empty state. There were no traces of anything being piled up, as if nothing had ever happened. Early the next morning, I deliberately got up early and kept watch on the balcony. At exactly 7 o'clock, Leona appeared downstairs, carrying an empty shopping bag as she walked toward the neighborhood entrance. I immediately put on my coat and followed. She went to the pharmacy first. "I need 10 boxes of ibuprofen, 10 boxes of Lianhua 5 boxes of amoxicillin." She listed a long string of medication names. The clerk looked at her in surprise. "There's a purchase limit now. Only 1 box per person per type." Leona smiled and pulled out a stack of cash from her wallet. "I have many elderly at home. Please help me out." I hid behind the shelves, watching her use the same method to raid 3 pharmacies, then went to the supermarket and bought 20 cases of mineral water, 10 cases of compressed biscuits, and a large quantity of canned food. The strangest part was that all these items were requested to be delivered directly to room 1602, XX Residential Complex. Yet she continued shopping empty-handed. At noon, she entered a jewelry store and came out with her jade pendant missing from her neck, replaced by a jade bracelet. At 3 p.m., I returned to the residential complex early and happened to see the delivery truck parked downstairs. Workers were unloading all the items she had purchased from various stores, /the goods ordered by MS, Leona from room 1602, "Just leave them at the door, /the deliverer man said." I hid in the stairwell, watching as the supplies piled up in the hallway outside her door, but when I passed by again at 8 p.m., the hallway was completely empty. Room 1602 was quiet, with no lights on, but from beneath the door crack, I saw a flickering blue light, like that from a computer screen. I returned home, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. There's definitely something wrong with her. Those vanished supplies, the unusual hoarding behavior, and that jade pendant that could absorb things. I opened my phone and searched for suddenly hoarding large quantities, and all that popped up were entries related to mental disorders, until I clicked into a post-apocalyptic survival forum and saw a thread titled 10 Signs Before a Catastrophe Strikes. If you notice someone suddenly stockpiling large amounts of supplies, especially medicine and food, if these supplies mysteriously disappear, if this person suddenly sells valuables for cash, my blood gradually ran cold. The post concluded with, "Then this person likely knows something, either a reincarnator, or..." I looked up toward room 1602, and a terrifying thought surfaced in my mind. She came through from the book. "Please let me know if any adjustments or additions are needed." I stared at the Doomsday Forum post on my phone screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard, frozen in hesitation. If she truly is a transmigrator, if she knows the apocalypse is coming, then in my past life, she clearly had medicine yet watched my mother die. I took a deep breath and closed the webpage. Now wasn't the time for anger. I needed proof, irrefutable evidence that could convince the government. Call the police directly? No way. The police would just treat it as a common dispute, at most giving a reprimand or lecture, and definitely wouldn't search her house. I need to find a way to get inside. Early the next morning, I put on a face mask, dug out an old work ID from my previous company, and used Photoshop to alter it to read XX Community Epidemic Prevention Inspection Team. After printing it out, I found an old folder and stuffed in some blank forms, a perfect fake identity. I stood in front of door 1602, took a deep breath, then raised my hand to knock. "Who is it?" Leona's voice came from inside, highly alert. Community Epidemic Prevention Inspection. With the recent flu outbreak, we need to register residents' health status. I deliberately raised my voice to sound like an impatient staff member. The door opened a crack, revealing Leona's face as she eyed me suspiciously. That jade pendant still hung around her neck, emitting a faint green glow in the dim hallway. I didn't receive any notice. She frowned. Random inspection. With the recent COVID resurgence, authorities are requiring strict checks. I waved my fake work badge and said firmly, "Cooperate please, it'll just take 5 minutes." She hesitated for a moment before finally opening the door slightly, but still blocked the entrance with her body. "Just register here." She's on guard against me. I pretended to lower my head and flip through the forms, while stealing a glance through the door crack. The entrance was piled with several cardboard boxes bearing the XX Pharmaceuticals logo, identical to that empty medicine box from my past life. Further inside, the living room floor was scattered with vacuum-sealed bags of rice and crates of mineral water. Sure enough, she was hoarding supplies. "Have you had any fever or cough symptoms recently?" While mechanically asking the questions, I quietly pointed my phone camera inside the door and pressed the record button with my thumb. "No," she replied impatiently. "Is this enough?" At that moment, a dull thud came from the room behind her. Like something heavy hitting the ground, Leona's expression changed abruptly as she turned her head sharply. Seizing the opportunity, I extended my phone forward, aiming the camera lens into the room. At least 20 boxes of fever-reducing medicine were piled beside the refrigerator. "What's that sound?" I pretended to be puzzled. "The cat knocked something over." She quickly closed the door. "Have you finished registering?" I pretended to check boxes on the form, but my heart was pounding wildly. She lied. She never had a cat. "All right, thank you for your cooperation." I closed the folder and turned to leave. After taking just 2 steps, her voice suddenly called out from behind, "Wait." A chill ran down my spine as I slowly turned back. Leona stared at me with cold eyes. "Are you really from the community?" She became suspicious. I forced myself to stay calm. "Of course, you can verify any issues with the neighborhood committee." She didn't speak, her gaze falling on my hands. My nails were digging into the folder from tension, the edges already turning white. The air froze for a second. Bang! She suddenly slammed the door shut. I stood in the hallway, cold sweat soaking through my back. She found out. Upon returning home, I immediately locked the door and replayed the secretly recorded video. Though the footage was shaky, it clearly showed: 1. The entrance is piled with medicines and food. 2. There are several military-grade thermal boxes in the corner of the living room, typically used for polar expeditions. 3. Most crucially, her jade pendant faintly emits an unnatural blue glow from certain angles. That's no ordinary piece of jewelry. I took out my phone, backed up the video, then opened my computer and started organizing the materials. 1. Leona's recent shopping records, obtained through connections at the neighborhood delivery station. 2. Receipts from her jewelry sales, secretly photographed while tailing her. 3. The recently secretly filmed stockpiling video. Finally, I wrote an anonymous tip letter, attached all the evidence, and sent it to the public email address of the Municipal Emergency Management Bureau. Subject: suspicious individuals found stockpiling strategic supplies in large quantities, suspected of foreknowing disaster. After sending it successfully, I slumped in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Now, all that's left is to wait for the government's response. 3 days later, the community suddenly announced fire inspection, checking every household for potential safety hazards. When the uniformed staff knocked on the door of 1602, Leona's face instantly turned pale. The game has begun. On the day of the fire inspection, I stayed by the peephole the entire time, not even daring to blink. 3 men in firefighter uniforms stood at the door of Unit 1602. One holding a registration form while the other 2 carried detection devices. Leona blocked the doorway, her tone stiff. "There's no problem in my apartment. The circuits have already been checked. Standard procedure. Please cooperate." The team leader spoke with steady authority, leaving no room for refusal. Leona's fingers unconsciously reached for the jade pendant around her neck, her knuckles turning white. She was nervous. After a few seconds of standoff, she finally stepped aside. As the firefighters entered, I clearly saw one of them, the tallest, quickly scanned the living room with a sharp gaze that didn't seem like an ordinary firefighter's. "They're from the Ministry of State Security." I held my breath as I watched them enter. The door wasn't fully closed, and I could faintly hear their conversation. "What's in these cardboard boxes?" "Just some daily necessities. Take a look." After a rustling sound, there was sudden silence for 2 seconds. "Is this medical protective clothing and antibiotics?" The man's voice suddenly turned serious. "MS. Leona, care to explain? My heart is pounding so hard it hurts. My palms are drenched in sweat." They found out. Half an hour later, Leona was taken away, not a police car, but an unmarked black van. Before getting in the car, She suddenly turned back to glance at our building, her eyes filled with venomous hatred as if frosted with ice. I hid behind the curtains until the taillights disappeared around the corner before collapsing onto the floor. Did it work? Early the next morning, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw the tall firefighter from yesterday standing outside the door, accompanied by a woman in casual clothes. Ms. Lynn, we're from the City Emergency Management Bureau. The woman showed her ID. We'd like to ask you some questions regarding your neighbor. How did they know it was me who reported it? I forced myself to stay calm as I opened the door. After entering, the taller man went straight to the balcony and drew the curtains. Don't be nervous, the woman smiled. We received your email. It's very valuable. She handed me a tablet displaying Leona's online shopping records, 3 full pages of nothing but freeze-dried food, water purification tablets, cold weather gear. The earliest entry was from 6 months ago. None of these supplies are currently in her home, the man suddenly spoke up. During our search, we found her storage room was practically empty. I suddenly looked up. Impossible. I saw it with my own eyes, saw her move the stuff in, but it vanished the next day. Right, the woman interjected, her gaze sharp. A chill ran down my spine as I nodded. The woman and man exchanged a glance before she pulled out a clear evidence bag from her purse. Inside was Leona's jade pendant. Do you recognize this? My throat tightened. She kept wearing it during last night's interrogation. It suddenly became scalding hot. The man's voice lowered. Our body cameras captured some anomalous footage. He pulled up a video clip. In the interrogation room, a crack suddenly appeared on Leona's jade bracelet, and a box of amoxicillin materialized out of thin air. Plop. As the medicine box landed on the table, all the surveillance equipment in the room simultaneously flickered with static. Miss Lynn. The woman stared directly into my eyes. You know something, don't you? My nails dig deep into my palms. Should I tell the truth? Should I tell them I died once? The woman's gaze pinned me like a knife. I clenched my fists, nails nearly piercing my palms. Should I tell the truth? If I tell them I'm reborn, will they think I'm crazy? Or worse, get locked up in a lab with Leona? But that footage from the body cam, the government has clearly noticed something abnormal. I had just started speaking when the man suddenly pulled out a phone from his pocket, opened a photo, and pushed it in front of me. It was a surveillance screenshot of me at the post office entrance 3 days ago when I mailed the whistleblowing letter. We know it's you, the woman said calmly, but what's even stranger is, she swiped the screen, and the next photo froze the blood in my veins. Leona's computer desktop, an open document titled Doomsday Survival Diary 2030, while the system time in the lower right corner clearly displayed, January 18, 2023, this can't be. I heard my own hoarse voice. The document was created last June, the man said, but it mentioned the South to North Water Diversion Anti-Freezing Project that was only approved this December. This code name is known to fewer than 10 people internally. The woman suddenly leaned forward. Miss Lynn, do you know what the most bizarre part is? She pulled up another video, showing Leona's hysterical scene in the interrogation room. You don't understand at all. After the extreme cold comes acid rain. Then insect plagues. It's clearly written in the original work. She struggled frantically against the handcuffs. Why arrest me? I'm just trying to save myself. Original work. This word struck my mind like lightning. Did she just mention the original work? My voice trembled. Both instantly straightened their backs. The woman's gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. How did you notice this word? It's over. I bit my tongue hard. But it was already too late. The man suddenly pulled out a file from his briefcase. The first page showed my photo with my job title from the company ID circled in red, Pharmaceutical Company Logistics Dispatcher. Last month, a batch of vaccines went missing from the National Pharmaceutical Reserve. The man spoke word by word. Only the dispatch system can access the transportation routes and handover times. I stood up abruptly. You suspect me? No. The woman pressed down the man's hand. We've checked on you. You were on a business trip in another city that day. She took a deep breath and suddenly changed the subject. Do you know why we called you in? I shook my head. Because in Leona's diary, she clicked to the last page of the document, mentioned a neighbor girl who froze to death on New Year's Eve. My breath stopped. She already knew I would die. And today, the woman glanced at her watch. It's January 19th. There are 5 days left until New Year's Eve, so now. The man placed the jade pendant on the coffee table, and it was emitting an eerie glow. Please tell us honestly, how exactly did you discover Leona's abnormality? The pendant's glow reflected on my deathly pale face. Tick, a drop of sweat trickled down my forehead. Because, I closed my eyes. I've been through this once before. The moment I uttered those words, the room fell terrifyingly silent. The glow of the jade pendant danced on the coffee table, like some eerie heartbeat. The woman, she asked me to call her Director Jasper, slowly straightened up, looking at me with complex emotions in her eyes. You mean, you were reborn? I clenched the hem of my clothes and nodded. Unexpectedly, she exchanged a glance with that national security man and surprisingly didn't show an absurd expression. The National Standard Code for 2030, Dax suddenly spoke up. Can you recite it? I was stunned. What? /GB/T2107320330 / he stared into my eyes. This is the standard mentioned in Leona's documentation, but it doesn't actually exist. Can you confirm? He was testing me. I shook my head. I don't know any codes. I only remember the calamity. Be more specific. Section Chief Jasper turned on the voice recorder, so I spoke. A New Year's Eve at -52 degrees. The despair of power and internet outage, mom's fever spiking to 41 degrees, and that empty medicine box thrown aside. By the end, the voice was trembling uncontrollably. Dax suddenly stood up and walked toward the balcony, his back rigid. Section Chief Jasper's fountain pen nib pierced a black hole into the paper. What role does Leona play in the original work? She suddenly asked. I froze. I'm not sure if she's transmigrated into the book or... She calls herself the female protagonist of an apocalyptic novel, Section Chief Jasper sneered, but according to the diary's contents, she was actually just a supporting character who knew the plot. She pulled up the interrogation records on her tablet. Question: why hoard supplies instead of saving people? Answer: in the original story, 90% of people in this apartment block would die during this segment. The survivors were all my allies. That pharmaceutical company girl. Pauses. Anyway. She was destined to freeze to death. My nails dug sharply into my palms, doomed to freeze to death. 2 hours later, I was taken into a heavily guarded building on the outskirts of the city. The Candle Dragon project, initiated 3 days ago. Section Chief Jasper swiped open a heavy blast door, originally designed to counter potential biochemical attacks. Seems we'll have to repurpose it now. Behind the door lay an underground space vast enough to accommodate 10,000 people, where workers were installing massive radiators beneath a ceiling crisscrossed with pipes like spiderwebs. Corners were piled with the same thermal containers I'd seen at Leona's home, now emblazoned with the national emblem. According to Leona's diary, the extreme cold period will last 79 days. Dax pointed eastward. They're retrofitting geothermal wells there. The western zone is a medical shelter. Your mother will be prioritized for placement. I whipped my head around. You found her? We received her yesterday, Section Chief Jasper said softly, at the Kunming Summer Retreat Base, where it's a constant 25 degrees Celsius. My eyes suddenly grew hot. In my past life, my mother walked 3 kilometers in -50 degrees Celsius weather to find medicine for me. Where's Leona? I asked hoarsely. Dax's expression suddenly turned strange. Her jade pendant cracked this morning, and then, his walkie-talkie suddenly crackled to life. Dax, suspect unconscious. We've got a situation at the warehouse. When we rushed into the temporary warehouse, the sight before us sent chills down my spine. Leona was slumped unconscious in a chair, while on the floor before her, a small mountain of supplies had materialized out of nowhere. Crates of medicine, canned food, even 2 diesel generators. What's even more terrifying is that these things are becoming transparent at a visible rate. Space collapse. Section Chief Jasper lunged toward the nearest box of medicine. Quick, save the supplies. I stood frozen in place, suddenly noticing a corner of blue peeking out from the pile of supplies. It was a crumpled book. 3. The moment I picked it up in the chaos, I felt as if struck by lightning. Polar apocalypse, becoming queen at -50 degrees Celsius. Leona's face was prominently displayed on the cover. The temperature is plummeting, someone suddenly shouted. The thermometer in the warehouse corner was dropping frantically. -10 degrees Celsius, -15 degrees Celsius, -20 degrees Celsius, outside the window. This year's first snowflake landed on the blast-proof glass, 3 days earlier than predicted. On the 7th day of the extreme cold's arrival, I stood before the glass curtain wall of the National Emergency Command Center, watching the heavy snowfall outside. The numbers on the display screen were clear and calm, -5 degrees Celsius asterisk, compared to the -52 degrees Celsius from my previous life. This was almost considered warm. In the hall behind me, staff were busily answering reports from various regions. Changchun Shelter has received 120,000 people, with geothermal heating operating stably. Zhengzhou material distribution completed. Second batch of cold-resistant clothing airdropped. Kunming Base reports first group of elderly adapting well. I instinctively touched the pass on my chest. Special consultant Amara from the Disaster Warning Center. 3 months ago, I was just an ordinary employee worrying about rent. Now, my memory data has become a key parameter for the National Disaster Relief Plan. Consultant Amara, Section Chief Jasper approached and handed me a hot coffee. Leona is awake. In the special ward, Leona's limbs were secured with soft restraint straps. The once lustrous jade pendant now lay shattered into several pieces, quietly resting in the evidence bag. Her pupils contracted violently when she saw me. How are you still alive? Deviations from the original work. I deliberately echoed the terminology from her diary, her expression instantly contorted. Impossible. The 90% mortality rate in the apartment building is a crucial plot point, so you knew the disaster was coming, but chose not to save anyone. I approached the sickbed, just to be your apocalypse queen. What do you know? She suddenly struggled frantically. In the original story, I used these supplies to build a survivor base. Everyone would beg me on their knees, looking at the bulging veins on her neck. I suddenly felt both ridiculous and pitiful. Did you know? I whispered softly. The supplies you hoarded are now feeding disaster victims across half the province. She froze. As for you, I pointed out the window. There are currently 836 dungeons nationwide, each 100 times larger than your base. Impossible, she screamed hysterically. Apocalyptic novels aren't written this way. I took one last look at this madwoman and turned to leave. Outside the door, Dax was discussing with the engineers. The jade fragments indeed exhibit quantum entanglement. Yes. Just like that jade bracelet we confiscated last time. On New Year's Eve, I video called my mom at the Kunming base. Behind her was the climate-controlled garden, where elderly residents were making dumplings. A little girl runs across the frame, holding a pink hand warmer in her hand. It was modified from the heating pads Leona had stockpiled. Amara, look, Mom holds up a box of ibuprofen. The base medical station gave it out, said it was for preventive distribution. The national emblem is printed on the medicine box. Outside the window, the snow gradually stopped. The main screen in the command center switched to the national weather map. Extreme cold wave warning lifted. Temperatures expected to rise above 0 degrees Celsius tomorrow. I fished out the crumpled novel from my pocket, the annotations on the last page still faintly visible. Finale. The female lead establishes a dictatorial empire. Snap. I threw the book into the shredder. Story 2. A torrential rain struck. And my best friend believed that the end of the world had arrived and decided to go on a zero-yuan purchase spree at the mall. I tried to persuade her to wait a bit longer and not to believe those novels. The social order was still in place, and doing this now was tantamount to burglary. My best friend heeded my words and indeed didn't go. However, our neighbor went on a zero-yuan purchase and came back with a lot of supplies, enjoying a good life with delicious food and drinks. My best friend hated me for blocking her path to becoming the protagonist and pushed me off the building, causing me to drown. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the first day of the torrential rain. 1. Freya. Later Jacob and Brother Scar will take us too for a zero-yuan purchase. Get yourself ready. I was jolted awake by the voice of my best friend, Ember. I rushed to the window and saw that it was pouring heavily outside, and the water level had just reached the thighs of an adult man. Only then did I confirm that I had been reborn to the first day of the torrential rain. In my previous life, it was also at this time, our city encountered such a heavy rain for the first time, and the drainage system couldn't keep up. The municipal authorities were stepping up repairs. Everyone was trapped in their houses and could only communicate online. As a result, a lot of alarmist remarks emerged. This heavy rain started last night, right? There's no sign of it weakening. Do you think it could be the end of the world? I just went out for a while. Beyond 1 meter, you can't tell humans from animals. There seem to be some unknown creatures in the water. It's terrifying. The apocalypse of the heavy rain is here. We're doomed. There are no supplies at home. My best friend, Ember, loves going online and reading novels, especially apocalyptic romance novels, stuff like The Zombie King Falls in Love with Me. 9 base leaders beat each other to a pulp to compete for me. I'm delicate and soft with a spatial ability, predicting danger in advance and stockpiling goods worth 10 billion. So, she firmly believed these apocalyptic remarks. Coincidentally, at this time, Jacob and Brother Scar from apartment 1201 next door decided to go on a zero-yuan purchase. My best friend hit it off with them and planned to go together. She also strongly invited me to go with them, too. At that time, I kindly advised my best friend, Ember, there's not going to be so many doomsdays, it's just rain, and it will stop soon. Don't be poisoned by those novels. What's the difference between going on a zero-yuan purchase now and burglary, even if, hypothetically, there is an apocalypse? We shouldn't go on a zero-yuan purchase right now. The social order is still intact, and the authorities are still actively carrying out rescue work. We should be patient and trust the authorities. Let's wait for a few more days. If it's still raining after a week, I'll accompany you no matter what you want to do. Okay. My best friend was persuaded by my earnest words and decided not to go on a zero-yuan purchase for the time being, since we didn't go. Jacob and Brother Scar took the two women from apartment 1204 with them and headed out into the heavy rain. Around 5 in the morning, the noisy voices woke me and my best friend up. We opened the door a crack and saw that they had actually come back from a 0 yuan purchase. Brother Scar and Jacob were hugging the two women, looking beaming with joy as they were dividing the supplies for the next 2 days. My best friend didn't give me a good look when I cooked a meal for her. She just picked up the food and banged it around, not taking a single bite. She also complained to me, "If it weren't for you, I definitely wouldn't have to eat plain rice and Chinese cabbage." Yes, there was rice at home, as well as some durable vegetables like Chinese cabbage, potatoes, and sweet potatoes, but there were no fresh fruits, vegetables, or meat. If we saved some, it would be enough for my best friend and me to eat for half a month, but she just wasn't satisfied. On the 5th day of the heavy rain, the smell of hot pot wafted from apartment 1201 next door. My best friend decided to go to Jacob's place to mooch off their meal. The two female neighbors from apartment 1204 had already arrived there. They humiliated my best friend. They scolded my best friend for not going on a 0 yuan purchase but wanting to take advantage. And they drove my best friend out in the manner of hostesses. At this moment, my best friend's negative emotions reached their peak. When she rushed back home, I was standing by the window, repairing the broken glass in the face of the heavy rain. She roared at me with a ferocious expression, "It's all your fault. If it weren't for you stopping me from going on a 0 yuan purchase, I would be the female protagonist." After saying that, she gave me a sudden push while I was repairing the glass. I wasn't prepared and fell from the 12th floor, dying in the dirty rainwater. Freya, are you deaf? What are you spacing out for? I told you to find a big bag, later we can use it to pack supplies. Ember's disdainful voice interrupted my thoughts. I took a deep breath, quickly racked my brain for a solution, and at the same time, moved my feet to help her find the bag. Since she wants to be the female protagonist so much, of course I have to respect her choice. Having been reborn, I definitely won't stop Ember from going on a 0 yuan purchase again. But the problem is, I don't believe in the doomsday theory. I can't go. And I have to find a way to get out of it. I rummaged through the room and found a huge woven bag. My eyes slid over the fruit knife, and suddenly I thought of a good idea. "Ember, I'm really sorry, but I can't go with you guys. I think I've started my period." I stuck my butt out and walked up to Ember, showing her the color of my outer pants. The blood had soaked through, and it was obvious that the flow was quite heavy. Ember grabbed the bag and said to me with a look of disgust, "The end of the world is coming, and you're being so fussy. If you really have to, what's the big deal about getting wet once?" I remained silent to show my unwillingness. Ember stared at me with a sneer. "Don't regret it if you don't go. When everyone else realizes it, the apocalypse will have already officially started, and there won't be any supplies outside. I won't share with you." Then, she impatiently continued to persuade me. "The apocalypse is coming. Do you want to just freeload? Hurry up and come with me." Seeing that I remained unmoved, she finally left in a huff, slamming the door behind her. I hid behind the peephole monitor and noticed that she went straight to Jacob's place in apartment 1201. From the sound recording device, I could vaguely hear their conversation at the door. "Jacob, Brother Scar, Freya isn't going, but in the apocalypse novels, a 0 yuan purchase can be very dangerous. There might be other teams competing with us. What should we do?" My heart skipped a beat. Although I had learned taekwondo for a while before and love working out, so I have better physical strength than an average girl, but there's no way I could fight two men barehanded, with Jacob and Brother Scar protecting her. Does it really matter to Ember whether I go on a 0 yuan purchase or not? The answer is no. Therefore, there's only one possibility left. If they encounter danger, Ember wants to use me as a shield. Without me as a shield, two more people soon came to offer themselves. The two girls from apartment 1204 came to the door, hoping that Jacob would take them on a 0 yuan purchase. Jacob and Brother Scar were about to refuse because, in their opinion, taking 3 women with 2 men on a 0 yuan purchase would only slow them down, but Ember rolled her eyes and actually smiled and persuaded Jacob to take them along, acting very magnanimous. Only I know how much Ember hates the 2 girls from apartment 1204. She used to scold them to me every day, saying they were little vixens who only knew how to show off their charm online to seduce men. This trip was destined not to go smoothly. But I was in a difficult situation myself and wouldn't take the initiative to remind anyone. The sky seemed to have a hole in it. In just a short while, the water level rose alarmingly and had already submerged the chest of an adult man. I lay by the window and saw Jacob and Brother Scar carry out a kayak and put it into the heavy rain. The 5 of them climbed onto it with difficulty and were about to leave. Other residents in the community heard the noise and stuck their heads out one after another. "Damn, you actually have a kayak. Can you do me a favor and tell my dad to come pick me up? What are you going out for? Didn't the authorities tell us to wait for rescue at home? It's dangerous outside. Come back quickly." Ember, wearing a raincoat and sitting on the kayak, held a kitchen knife in her hand and waved it high up at the building. "The end of the world is coming. And you're all just a bunch of useless people waiting to die. Don't come begging us to take you in when we build our base in the future." Hearing this, the community was in chaos. They seemed to be going to look for supplies. Could it really be the end of the world? As Ember and the others left, some people stared intently at their backs, and a sinister light flashed in their eyes. They pulled over others and started to plot something furtively. Ember, who had read so many apocalypse novels, had forgotten one of the most important things. When a disaster strikes, human nature is the most terrifying thing. Thinking of this, I found some iodine, cleaned the wound on my palm, and wrapped it with a clean cloth. Then I started to transform my home without delay. 5. This house was bought for me by my parents. Last year, Ember came to me crying, saying that the company she worked for was in trouble and had laid her off, and she had nowhere to live. Ember and I met in university, and I've always regarded her as my best friend, so I asked her to come and live with me for free. It's a building with 2 elevators and 4 apartments on each floor. In apartment 1201 lived Jacob and brother Scar, 2 hoodlums. Every day, a lot of social people would come in and out of their place, eating, drinking, having fun, and shouting loudly until midnight. I complained to the property management and the police many times, but it always ended up going nowhere. In apartment 1204 lived the pair of twin sisters. They were live streamers. Every day, they dressed up beautifully and walked around with their noses in the air. Apartment 1203 was bought by my childhood friend's parents for his future marriage, but since my childhood friend had always been in another province and the house hadn't been fully renovated yet, it had been unoccupied, and there were a lot of building materials and other things stored inside. Our 2 families were old friends, so my childhood friend gave me a key to help them receive packages. In my previous life, I thought it was just going to rain for a few days and there was no apocalypse, so I had no precautions against Ember and the others, and I didn't ask my childhood friend for help. At that time, I always thought the heavy rain would pass soon and there was no need to trouble anyone. This time, even if there's no apocalypse, I have to be prepared and be on guard against Ember. No, be on guard against everyone. Thinking of this, I immediately took out my phone and found my childhood friend's contact information. "James, I need your help urgently." 6. Amidst the sound of the heavy rain, on one hand, I kept an eye on the neighbors upstairs and downstairs, fearing that someone might take advantage of my situation and come to disturb me. On the other hand, after getting my childhood friend's consent, I used the key to open his door, checked the packages he had sent over, and moved all the usable things into my house. My childhood friend laughed at me for being overly suspicious, saying that it was just a bit of rain, so why was I making such a big fuss? At the same time, he taught me how to set things up to be safe. I took out 4 steel bars, crossed them and placed them against the walls on both sides of the door, blocking the door completely. Then I took out the horizontal bar that my childhood friend had sent over before, placed it 2 centimeters away from the door, against the walls on both sides, and tightened the screws. My door opened inward. Even if someone tried to break in by force, they would be blocked by these 5 sticks. Just in case, I also moved his chainsaw over and plugged it in at the entrance to try it out. It buzzed, and it felt very handy. Even an adult man wouldn't dare to try to take the chainsaw barehanded under such a threat. My windows had anti-theft nets installed, so I wasn't too worried about that. However, I found several big locks from my childhood friend's packages and added a few more locks to the anti-theft windows. Then I used the remaining steel bars to block the inside of the windows. In this way, even if someone cut through the anti-theft net and broke the window, they would still have to cut through the steel bars to get in. I opened the unopened buckets of waterproof glue and painted it all on the walls that had leaked in my previous life. Then I sealed all the windows with waterproof cloth, except that it was a bit dark. There were no other problems. However, my childhood friend told me that he had several boxes of candles at his place. There were also vacuum-packed roast chickens and roast geese, as well as several bags of rice, flour, cooking oil, and even a few pieces of cured meat and 2 boxes of dried fruits. It was said that his parents had prepared these to offer to the god of wealth after the house was renovated. In addition, my childhood friend had also bought several boxes of self-heating hot pots and instant noodles and sent them over before. He had originally planned to come back in a few days to oversee the renovation and eat them himself. Unexpectedly, the heavy rain had disrupted everyone's plans. Now it all benefited me. The heavy rain caused the signal to be intermittent, and it seemed that the call was about to be cut off. My childhood friend suddenly put away his joking tone and said to me in a low voice on the other end of the phone, "Freya, you should have received a red package from me before. Inside it is a tang dao, a kind of traditional Chinese sword that I collected, and an electronic crossbow. These things are very dangerous, and I originally didn't want to tell you. However, we don't know when the heavy rain will stop, so you must protect yourself." 7. After working hard for most of the day and confirming that there were no omissions, I finally felt at ease. I locked my childhood friend's now empty house and went back to my own house to wait peacefully. It was already dark at this time. I knew that there would be countless fierce battles ahead. I had to conserve my strength. After reassuring my parents that I was safe, I charged all 3 power banks that I had taken from my childhood friend's place and my own 2 power banks. Then I sorted out the currently available supplies and hid some in the master bedroom, the guest bedroom, and the living room respectively. Only then did I cook a big pot of rice, stir-fried the remaining bunch of green vegetables at home, and made a dish of potato chunks with cured meat. I happily started to eat. In my previous life, on the 3rd day of the heavy rain, the power and water supply would be cut off. On the 4th day of the heavy rain, the internet and natural gas would be cut off. This was also the reason why Ember became more and more anxious later on, firmly believing that I was blocking her from going on a zero-yuan purchase and preventing her from becoming the female protagonist in an apocalypse novel, and eventually even killed me. But I also firmly believed that the apocalypse was just nonsense. I don't look forward to the apocalypse, nor do I want to become the so-called savior or female protagonist, because I still have my parents, friends. I want to live to see them, now that there is heavy rain all over the country and the authorities are short-staffed, but they must be on their way here. I believe that I will definitely wait for the rescue. All I can do now is to try my best to save myself and hold fast to that line of human nature. Don't seek trouble, don't be afraid of trouble, and protect myself well. After thinking all this through, I didn't dare to go back to my room to sleep, for fear that I wouldn't be able to hear the sounds outside in time, so I brought a quilt over, held the tang dao in my hand, and dozed off lightly on the sofa. I don't know how long I slept, but I was awakened by a heart-rending scream. The sound pierced through the rainy night, extremely terrifying. 8. I took out my phone and checked the time. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. By now, it was already the 2nd day of the torrential rain. The time was exactly the same as in my previous life. I tiptoed to the window and looked down through the blurred rain curtain. Vaguely, I could see that the kayak was blocked outside our building, and there were 3 people sitting on it. The water level was almost up to the 1st floor, so now the neighbors were all standing on the corridor of the 2nd floor. From time to time, several hands stretched out from the building, seemingly trying to grab the things on the kayak. Jacob and Brother Scar were vigilantly protecting the bags of supplies, and Ember was holding a long watermelon knife in her hand, staring coldly at everyone in the building. In the middle of the 2 groups of people, a young girl was struggling in the flood. She seemed about to climb up, but was firmly pressed back down by several long poles that stretched out from the building. A neighbor said, "Jacob, Brother Scar, as long as you share half of the supplies with us, we'll let the sister go." Yes. The girl being held in the water was the younger sister of the twin sisters from apartment 1204. The scream I heard earlier was also from the younger sister. No, why is only the younger sister back? Where is the elder sister? Jacob and Brother Scar exchanged a look and didn't say anything. The next second, however, Ember raised the long knife and slashed fiercely at the girl in the water. The girl let out a short scream, quickly lost her breath, and sank into the filthy floodwater. Blood splashed all over Ember's face, making her look like a ghost, but she sneered and said to the neighbors blocking their way in front of her, "You still want to threaten us to hand over the supplies with her, with the end of the world coming? I'm not a saint. If anyone wants to grab them, they have to ask the knife in my hand first." 9. I had just managed to calm down my wildly beating heart. There were already rustling footsteps outside the corridor. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, and my hand holding the tang dao tightened more and more. Then, there came a knock on the door. "Freya, open the door." It was Ember. Through the peephole monitor, I could clearly see the blood on Ember's face. Not far behind her, Jacob and Brother Scar were hurriedly moving the supplies into apartment 1201. The rainwater and blood on them dripped onto the ground, glistening coldly, and the other half of the supplies was at Ember's feet. She seemed to want to move the supplies into my house. Tough people are afraid of ruthless people, and ruthless people are afraid of those who don't care about their lives. Ember's slash had intimidated everyone. Those greedy neighbors didn't dare to stop her anymore. Even Jacob and Brother Scar looked at her with new eyes and were faintly a bit afraid of her. Of course, I was also afraid of her, so I wouldn't let her step into this house again. Seeing that I didn't open the door and didn't make a sound, Ember wiped the knife impatiently. "Freya, Don't play dead. I know you're at home. Open the door. That's right. In such heavy rain, I had nowhere else to go but stay at home. Seeing that I was still silent, Ember suddenly raised the long knife and stabbed it into the peephole monitor. The display screen inside the door went black immediately. The monitor was broken and could only be used as an ordinary peephole now. I suppressed my wildly beating heart and stared quietly at Ember outside the door, who seemed a bit crazy. Under the dim light, half of her face was hidden in the shadow. Holding a bunch of keys, she brought them close to the peephole and whispered like a devil, "Freya, do you think that if you don't open the door for me, I'll have nowhere to live? You still don't know, do you? Those two little bitches from apartment 1204 are both dead." 10. It turned out that Jacob and Brother Scar originally planned to go on a 0 yuan purchase at the supermarket, but unexpectedly, as soon as the heavy rain started last night, one supermarket had already quickly gathered up its inventory and transferred it away. The other two supermarkets had already been occupied by several other teams, and there was a big brawl in front of the supermarkets. Ember's group consisted of 2 men and 3 women, and their combat power couldn't compare with these teams. So, they left immediately when they saw this. Therefore, their 0 yuan purchase plan failed. Going to a farther place was not safe, and the kayak couldn't make it there either. At this moment, a malicious light suddenly flashed in Ember's eyes, and she smiled and said, "I know there's a very remote grocery store nearby. It's run by an elderly couple, and they also have a little grandson with them. It's easy to do a 0 yuan purchase there. Moreover, these people are only focused on the big supermarkets and won't think about the grocery store. How about we go there and take a look?" So, the group of 5 people turned and went to the grocery store. Ember's recommendation of this grocery store was not accidental. A month ago, Ember went to this grocery store to buy something and asked the shopkeeper's wife to give her a discount of 5 yuan. The shopkeeper's wife refused, so Ember came back and complained to me for a long time, and even deliberately posted a moment on social media cursing this store. The grocery store was located in a low-lying area. When Ember and the others arrived, they found that the water level had already flooded the entrance of the grocery store. The elderly couple had carried a lot of supplies in big and small bags onto the roof, and their little grandson was standing beside them. They happily waved at the kayak approaching from afar, thinking that they had finally waited for the rescue. Unexpectedly, what they waited for was the devil. Ember and the others robbed them of all their supplies. During the fight, the little grandson was pushed into the flood by Ember and carried away. The elderly couple rushed forward with their eyes wide with anger, wanting to die together with them, but Ember quickly pulled the elder sister of the girls from apartment 1204 as a shield. While dodging, the elderly couple pounced on the elder sister, so the 3 of them lost their balance and were also carried away by the flood in the heavy rain and disappeared. Based on her experience from reading apocalypse novels, Ember guessed that there would definitely be neighbors coming to snatch goods. Therefore, on the way back, she schemed to let the younger sister of the girls from apartment 1204 sit in the front. As soon as the kayak arrived downstairs, a group of neighbors pulled the younger sister sitting at the front off the boat. They used this to threaten Jacob and the others to hand over the supplies, but no one expected that this was actually Ember's plan to use others to kill. If the person who went on the 0 yuan purchase with them was me, then the one who would die would be me. 11. After hearing the whole story, my disgust for Ember reached its peak. But she didn't know my feelings and still thought I was the good best friend who let her manipulate me before. She even rolled her eyes and chose to continue coaxing me. "Freya, after all, you're my good best friend. Now I have supplies, and Jacob and Brother Scar also trust me very much. Come out and work with me to develop our apocalypse career. In troubled times, heroes emerge. We will definitely be able to establish our own influence. At that time, I'll be the base leader, and you'll be the deputy base leader. Whatever we want will be within our reach, and we could even rule a country." Listening to her words that were deeply poisoned by novels, I almost couldn't help laughing out loud. Who on earth gave her such confidence? Seeing that I kept pretending to be dead, Ember kicked my door several times in anger. Finally, she had no choice but to drag the heavy supply bag and walk in the direction of apartment 1204. In the empty corridor, only the winding bloodstains and her crazy words were left. "From today on, apartment 1204 will be my initial base. My apocalypse journey officially starts from here." 12. On the 3rd day of the torrential rain, as expected, the power and water supply were cut off. Fortunately, I had collected drinking water in advance, and I had 5 power banks with me. There were also several boxes of candles at home. If I used them sparingly, it would be enough for me to last for a long, long time. After waking up, I hurriedly turned on the internet, thinking I would see overwhelming apocalypse remarks. But I didn't expect that a trending topic exploded on the whole network and even overshadowed the unease caused by the power and water outages. Ember was on the trending topic and was being cyberbullied. The cause was that someone released a video. It showed the scene of Ember pushing the little boy into the water from the roof in order to grab the supplies. There was also the scene of Ember pulling the elder sister of the girls from apartment 1204 to block the knife and then killing her together with the elderly couple. It turned out that the person who released the video was standing at home on a high-rise building, using a long focus lens to take pictures around to see the situation of the flood and the heavy rain. Unexpectedly, they captured yesterday's grocery store. Then, Ember, wrapped in a black raincoat, was called the Flood Butcher by netizens, and the whole network was looking for who she was. Heaven's net is wide, and though the mesh is loose, it lets nothing through. Finally, enthusiastic netizens dug up all her information. Many people cursed her for being vicious, saying that it had only been 3 days of rain, and she had already killed 3 people. They said she was cruel and ruthless and told her to surrender herself quickly. So, someone immediately announced, saying that Ember had actually killed 4 people. There was one more who died downstairs in our community. It seemed that this must have been announced by a neighbor. The official urgently made a statement online, saying that they would definitely find out the truth. They also called the property management, saying that the situation was urgent and they couldn't get here for the time being. They asked the property management to help lock Ember in the house alone first, and they would come to our community to take Ember away for investigation after the rain stopped. But Ember didn't take these things seriously at all. Not only did she tacitly admit the fact of the killing, she even fought against netizens online and brazenly said, "When the end of the world comes, there will be deaths. It's their honor to sacrifice for me, the female protagonist of the apocalypse." 13. In the end, however, the property management still didn't lock Ember up, because after the power outage, most people's phones quickly ran out of power. There were many fewer online justice warriors, and Ember wasn't afraid of being scolded at all. The heavy rain made the sky extremely dark, and people in the homeowners group were asking whose house had candles. I looked at the box of candles at my feet and didn't say anything, but Ember jumped out at this moment. "Ember, I have candles at my house. I got them from the grocery store yesterday." Later, "You can all come to my house and queue up to get them. You can also get some biscuits and snacks, although it's not enough for everyone to be full. A few pieces for each person can also fill their stomachs a bit." Neighbor, really? Wow, you're so kind. Ember, of course it's true. Moreover, in the future, we can take you to collect supplies together. We can form a community base and will definitely shine brightly in the apocalypse. Jacob, Brother Scar, don't you think so? Jacob, well, what Ember said is all true, Brother Scar. We're in Shinwa community. How about naming Ember's base the Ember Base? Neighbor B, I'll be the first to join. Ember, don't be in a hurry. I have one thing I need your help with. As for what this favor was, I didn't know, because I was kicked out of the homeowners group. It seemed that the trouble Ember was going to cause next was related to me again. I checked the doors and windows over and over again, gripped the automatic crossbow and the Tang Dao in my hand tightly, and stared fixedly at the door. Sure enough, not long after, there came heavy footsteps in the corridor. It seemed that many people were rushing towards me. Then, Ember's smiling voice came from the door. "Freya, the houses above the 6th floor have been requisitioned by our Ember base. Please move to a floor below the 6th floor. Also, you can't take the supplies in your house with you. It's convenient for me to distribute them uniformly." 14. At this time, the torrential rain was still continuing, and the water level had completely flooded the 2nd floor and was spreading to the 3rd floor. In my previous life, I died on the 4th day of the heavy rain. At that time, the heavy rain didn't stop, and the water level had once reached up to the 5th floor. Therefore, moving to a lower floor at this time was a direct death sentence. But now, the gangsters Jacob and Brother Scar were obeyed her. The neighbors who had witnessed her killing the younger sister of the girls from apartment 1204 downstairs had also accepted her overtures. Through the peephole, I saw a group of big men had pried open the door lock of my childhood friend's house in apartment 1203 and were seizing the place. But when they found it was empty, they could only curse and say it was unlucky. So, led by Ember, they turned around and blocked my door again. It seemed that I wouldn't be able to get away with it so easily today. The municipal authorities are still actively carrying out rescue work, and it will soon be our community's turn. Who gave you the right to requisition the houses? On the shoe cabinet in the entrance hall, that Tang Dao was placed. In my palm, I was holding that electronic crossbow. Ember pretended to persuade me. "Freya, I know you've always been withdrawn and selfish, but now, with the flood upon us, we should unite and deal with the natural disaster and the end of the world. After requisitioning your house, people who contribute more to our base will live in it. We will also distribute more of your supplies to you. You should be happy about that." Through the peephole, I saw her hypocritical face and couldn't help laughing coldly. It has nothing to do with me. Jacob and Brother Scar were angry and kicked the door. Ember, don't waste your breath on her. Just pry it open. Ember stepped back, and a group of big and burly men started the door-breaking work. Bang, 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 bang. Fortunately, the steel bars and the horizontal bar I had set up before worked. When my parents decorated the house, they were prepared for danger in times of peace, and this door itself was made of anti-theft materials. At this time, except for the huge noise, there was no sign of the door opening at all. Seeing that one plan didn't work, Ember's eyes flickered. And she came up with another plan. Jacob, you stay here and lead the people to break the door. Brother Scar, you lead the people to the balcony of apartment 1203 and see if you can open the window of Freya's house from there. I used to live in Freya's house. There's still a lot of rice and potatoes in her house, which is enough for the brothers to have a good meal. Moreover, on the 12th floor, the heavy rain shouldn't be able to reach this high anyway, so please work hard to capture this place. This is the first battle of our Ember base. Come on, everyone. 15. If it weren't for the different stances and if I didn't know her true nature, I would really want to praise her as the female protagonist of an apocalypse novel. Unfortunately, all her benefits were built on the sacrifice of others, seeing that there were clanging sounds coming from outside the doors, windows, and glass. Brother Scar clung to the window of my house along the air conditioner outdoor unit. He was holding an axe in his hand, with a ferocious smile on his face, and he slammed the axe down on the window. With a bang, the stainless steel anti-theft window collided with the axe. Brother Scar loosened his grip on the axe, and it fell straight down. The heavy rain made his feet slippery, and he angrily roared at me, "You bitch, just you wait. When I get in, I'll make your life a living hell." Then he turned his head and said to the people on the balcony, "Bring me the chainsaw." A weak reply came from the next door, "Brother Scar, the power is out, the chainsaw can't be used." Immediately after, Ember's vicious voice came from inside again, "It's okay, just now, one of our brothers said that he has a cutting machine at home, which is powered by a storage battery. They are about to bring it up. This mere anti-theft window is no big deal, it can be used just right, Brother Scar. You smashed the glass first." Then, Brother Scar took a sledgehammer, reached through the anti-theft window, and smashed the glass in front of me hammer by hammer. Soon, there came the click sound of the glass breaking. Looking at this group of scoundrels, I could no longer hold back my anger. Sitting around and waiting for death would only lead to death, so I took a few steps forward vigorously, and pulled open the transparent waterproof cloth and the window. The violent wind and rain immediately swept towards me. I turned on the switch of the automatic crossbow, squinted my eyes, and aimed at Brother Scar outside the window. 16. With a whoosh sound, a beam of arrow light shot towards Brother Scar and hit his raised right leg right on the mark. I sneered and raised the crossbow a little higher, aiming at his neck, and said, "If there is a next time, it won't just be your leg that gets shot." Brother Scar let out continuous screams of pain. While he panicked and dodged the crossbow that I raised again, he shouted at the next door, "Pull me up, quickly pull me up, this bitch actually dared to hurt me. Jason, you go and break the window for me." "Ah, Brother Scar, I don't dare, she has a weapon, and that thing is really fast." After this incident, the people under Ember temporarily stopped their actions. No matter how high one's martial arts skills are, they are still afraid of a kitchen knife, without guns and ammunition. This automatic crossbow of mine can be regarded as the weapon with the strongest lethality. While there was still internet, I immediately sent a message to my childhood friend to express my gratitude. My childhood friend, however, reminded me not to relax. The arrows in the crossbow would also run out. In case something happened later, I could only rely on myself. The torrential rain poured down, and I didn't sleep all night. The fourth day arrived with my nerves so tightly strung. I carefully checked and, as expected, the internet was cut off. Now I was completely cut off from the outside world. There was also no natural gas at home. Fortunately, there were quite a lot of foods that I had moved from my childhood friend's house. I happily opened a box of self-heating hot pot, poured in the water stored in 3 large buckets, removed the seasonings with a strong chili oil flavor, and added a little of the rice that I had cooked the day before. Then I started to eat. Today was the date of my death in my previous life, and I couldn't afford to be careless. After the meal, I feigned sleep on the sofa in the living room. There came a noisy commotion outside the door. I held a knife in my left hand and a crossbow in my right hand, and quickly walked towards the door. "Ember, what right do you have to requisition our houses? Where is the property management? Why doesn't the property management take care of this?" These poor neighbors who had been honestly waiting for rescue didn't know that the property management had long been in cahoots with Ember. "We all pay for these houses. Since that's the case, then you give us the high-rise houses to live in. Do you really think you're some kind of queen? Get lost. If you dare to snatch my house, I'll snatch yours." Through the peephole, I could see the whole situation. It turned out that the water level outside had spread to the 5th floor. and the torrential rain was actually still continuing, because she didn't manage to snatch my house. Ember, in a fit of anger, called on her lackeys to go and snatch the houses of other people upstairs and downstairs. There were many people under her who lived on the lower floors, that's why they responded so quickly to Ember's suggestion of snatching houses. 17. In the corridor, those furious neighbors besieged the 12th floor. The number of people on both sides was not much different, and the battle was on the verge of breaking out. Ember walked out of the door with a cold smile. Jacob and Brother Scar were standing on either side of her, like a real person in a high position. She looked down at the group of neighbors in front of her who were arguing for their houses. Everything I do is for the Ember base. If you are willing to join our base, I will distribute the houses and supplies uniformly. Of course, we don't accept the old, the weak, women, and children. How ridiculous. Whose family doesn't have children or elderly people? Wasn't she a woman herself? She kept saying that she was acting in the name of saving the world, but she was doing these disgusting things. Of course, if you don't want to, in the apocalypse, the saints are the first to be killed. Sorry, I'm not a saint. For the peace and quiet of our Ember base, you can all just die. In her eyes, killing people seemed as easy as killing an ant. As soon as she finished speaking, the shouts of killing rang out. The people of the Ember base brought out the cutting machine mentioned earlier. With the power of the storage battery, it became the most powerful weapon on the 12th floor. They were ruthless. Each person held a watermelon knife as long as their arm and slashed ferociously. For a moment, the blood flowed like a river, and severed limbs were flying around. Countless people fell, and countless others wailed on the ground. Compared with the people of the Ember base, the other neighbors who were disorganized and undisciplined were ultimately a bit inferior. Finally, only a few neighbors fled in a hurry, staggering downstairs, but they were caught up by the people of the Ember base. Amid the pleas for mercy of these neighbors, the people of the base threw them from the building into the torrential rain. Just like me in my previous life, the families of these dead neighbors, upon learning of these sad news, could only curl up on the lower floors and wait for death in silence. Now, in the whole building, except for me, it was all Ember's domain. 18. In the evening, I safely passed the time of my death in my previous life. What's even more delightful is, the rain that had been falling for 4 days and 4 nights suddenly stopped. The water level also stopped rising and stayed at the 6th floor. I guessed that perhaps this rain disaster was coming to an end. I heard the clattering footsteps coming from the next door. It turned out that Ember decided to send Jacob to lead people out to look for supplies. In the first 2 days, the kayak was likely to be capsized in the torrential rain, and it was especially unsafe. There were so many of them, and the food they had snatched from the neighbors had all been consumed. If they didn't go out now, they would really starve to death. But the people who went out soon came back in a panic, saying that although the rain had stopped, just now, a landslide occurred on a nearby mountain, and the turbid and surging flood was raging outside the building, not to mention going out of the community to look for supplies. They couldn't even get to the other buildings in the same community. In just a short while, 2 of the people who went out had died, both of whom were carried away by the flood. There were too many people in the Ember base to accommodate, and they had been squeezing in the corridor these 2 days. Therefore, I could hear a lot of their conversations. After listening to these reports, Ember's increasingly emaciated face suddenly turned towards the direction of my house. She stared fixedly at my door, as if calculating something. My sense of unease grew stronger and stronger. Suddenly, she hooked her thin lips. Brothers, we can't go out for now, and we can't find any food, according to my experience from reading novels. This kind of natural disaster and apocalypse are continuous. Now that the rain has stopped, it should soon be the apocalypse of high temperature or the apocalypse of extreme cold. If it's the apocalypse of high temperature, the flood will be evaporated. If it's the apocalypse of extreme cold, the flood will freeze and turn into ice. We all have a chance to escape. What we need to do now is to hold on until the next apocalypse arrives. So, food is the most important thing, if we're lucky. There might still be a little food in my good best friend Freya's house. If not, in troubled times, we shouldn't be too particular. Whether it's Freya or those surviving family members downstairs, they can all be our reserved food during this period. As the last word fell, the whole place was silent. My heart also trembled again and again. Ember, how dare she? 19. But hunger is the most unbearable pain. When people are extremely hungry, they can do anything. So, a group of men with green eyes began to take various tools and smash the walls of my house in the corridor. The cutting machine stained with blood also came in handy again at this time. Another part of the people rushed downstairs excitedly. I knew that they were going to catch those old, weak women and children. I wasn't sure if it was my illusion or not, under their pounding. I actually felt that the whole building was shaking. The walls also gradually showed cracks. Fortunately, those old, weak women and children who were caught were not killed immediately. Ember asked someone to clean up a small room in my childhood friend's house in apartment 1203 and locked them in. She then said meaningfully, "If there are supplies in Freya's house, we won't have to take the last step. If not, then everyone, be prepared mentally." All the people's green eyes immediately shot towards my house, as if I had become the last hope of this pack of hungry wolves. 20. On the 5th day of the torrential rain, at 3 o'clock in the morning, with a boom sound, a hole was made in the wall. A ferocious and ugly face leaned close to the hole and looked at me inside the house. Supplies, here I come. I pursed my lips and didn't say anything. But the electronic crossbow in my hand had already accurately shot towards the man's arm that was stretched in, with 3 consecutive arrows. The man howled in pain and withdrew his arm. In the corridor outside, Ember's voice also became clearer and clearer. "You useless thing, go up. Even with the human wave tactic, we have to take her down." After the commotion, the hole in the wall became bigger and bigger. One man after another came to crawl through the hole, and the arrows in my hand were getting fewer and fewer until the last one was used up. Ember suddenly let out a soft laugh. "Freya, you don't have any arrows left, do you?" She was still the one who knew me best. Unfortunately, she had ultimately betrayed this understanding. After this round of defense, I also became calmer and calmer. I quickly threw down the empty electronic crossbow, opened the knife sheath, clasped my hands together, and gripped the sharp tang dao in my hand tightly. "Ember, have you forgotten why you became friends with me in the first place?" "Because I came from a background of learning taekwondo. We first met when I helped drive away the drunk hooligan who was harassing her. Without arrows, I could still use the knife. Without the knife, I still had so many steel bars on the wall, and I still had my fists and legs. In this life, I will definitely protect myself well." The hole in the wall was very small. While they tried to expand it, they continuously sent people trying to crawl in. The knife in my hand struck at them without any set pattern, and I also cleverly avoided the dangerous parts. The blood dyed the whole wall red, and in the whole space, there were only the men's rapid breathing sounds. "Damn it, this woman is crazy. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm almost starving to death. I'm going to find those people who were locked up." He was going to find those old, weak women and children. I gritted my teeth, picked up a few biscuits on the table, and threw them out of the hole. I said harshly, "Your opponent is me." It wasn't that I was being a saint, it was just that I could delay for a while, and every bit of delay counted. I anxiously looked at the watch on my wrist, when the pointer slowly jumped to 5 o'clock in the morning. Outside the window, finally, a whistle sound that came from far away and gradually approached was heard. Everyone spontaneously put down their knives and rushed to the window to take a look. A huge military cruise ship was slowly approaching here. Extra story 1. On the 5th day of the torrential rain, we waited for the rescue. From the military cruise ship came a comforting voice that made people burst into tears. "Sorry, fellow countrymen, we're late. The natural disaster of the torrential rain has ended, and you are safe now." Whether it was the people of the Ember base, those old, weak, sick, and disabled, or me, everyone wept with joy. Only Ember, with a pale face, muttered to herself, "No, no, how could the apocalypse end? I'm the female protagonist. I haven't even shown my abilities yet." A pair of silver handcuffs locked her white and slender hands. "Ember, you are suspected of murdering multiple people. Please come with us." All the people of the so-called Ember base were imprisoned at the bottom of the cruise ship. We survivors were taken to wash up, eat, and rest, too. On the day of the trial, I appeared in court with the evidence recorded on my phone. What Ember didn't know was that although the power and internet were cut off, the power banks that I had taken from my childhood friend came in handy. Coincidentally, at this time, Jacob and Brother Scar from apartment 1201 next door decided to go on a zero-yuan purchase. The video of her going on a zero-yuan purchase at the grocery store and killing that poor grandmother, grandson, and the elder sister of the girls from apartment 1204 had long been widely spread on the internet. When the video was just exposed, thinking it was the apocalypse, she blatantly admitted her crime orally. As for the younger sister of the girls from apartment 1204 who was killed by her downstairs, there were also surviving neighbors as witnesses. In addition, the people of the Ember base, in order to reduce their crimes, had long shifted all the blame onto Ember. Even Jacob and Brother Scar said in disdain, "That woman is a lunatic, arrogant and conceited. She kills anyone she sees." At first, we thought she really had some abilities, so we thought of using her to get more people and supplies, so that she could lead us to show our abilities in the apocalypse. Since there is no apocalypse now, why should we still help her hide the truth? So, with both human witnesses and material evidence available, This major case was immediately widely publicized on the internet. The vicious reputation of the flood butcher also once became well known throughout the world. To appease the public, Ember was sentenced to death and executed immediately. 3. In addition, this torrential rain washed away many scoundrels. Some people maliciously maxed out their credit cards, some people committed burglary, some people committed arson and murder, and some people carried out malicious zero-yuan purchases. Although their crimes were not as serious as Ember's, everyone received legal judgment. As for me, although I injured many people, but from the beginning to the end of the incident, I secretly recorded videos with my phone. I was acting in self-defense. On the day when the incident was finally settled, I walked out of the court, although the flood and the torrential rain had ransacked the once beautiful city, but fortunately, this was indeed not the apocalypse. Just an abnormal natural disaster, and everyone after the disaster was working hard to rebuild their homes. Sweat hung on their foreheads, shining brightly in the sun. I walked towards my parents and my childhood friend who were waiting for me on the other side of the road. Holding hands, we walked together in the direction of the new home.